My name's Everette Faucete. I'm a World War II vet. I served in the Air Force, 8th Air Force, and my campaign was in the European campaign. And I was inducted into the Air Force through Fort Bragg as a draftee, and I took my basic training in Miami Beach, Florida. After basic, I went to Tyndall Field, Florida, and took gunnery school at Tyndall Field. This was on a B-24 bomber. And after the gunnery school, I went to Massachusetts, West Oldfield, Massachusetts, and did formed a crew, and we trained as a crew in West Oldfield. After that, we shipped out and went to Europe, and Bob was based in England in the 392nd Bomb Group, 578 Squadron, and I flew my tour of combat out of England. Some of the things that happened during this tour, which was 35 missions, that I will go into and talk about, and some of them are comical, some of them are serious, and some of them are scary. Some of the first things I think that comes to my mind about flying in combat, and the first tour, the very first mission that we attempted to go on, the aircraft they assigned us was the oldest aircraft on the base. They called it WW, and of course that meant war weary. And they'd done retired it, but they gave it for us for some reason. And on the attempt takeoff, we couldn't hold it on the runway, so had to abort the takeoff. And we came right back, and they put us in another airplane, and we went on the mission. And on some of these missions, well, all of them really, you would encounter anti-aircraft fire and enemy aircraft attacks. And some of the things I think that, reflecting back on this, was that the flak was so dense at times that you would look out at it and wonder how in the world you could get through it, because it's just a black cloud of aircraft shell bursts. And you could hear it at times bouncing off the airplane, which if you could hear it, you hear this actually hitting the airplane, you wasn't hurt. But if you didn't hear it and it came through the airplane, that's when you got it, because most of the time. One instance I remember I was doing at my position as a waist gunner at that time, and I felt something hit me on the side of the leg, just real lightly. And I looked down, and it was a piece of anti-aircraft shell about the size of a silver dollar. It just bounced off my leg, which I have that today as a souvenir. I think that's probably the closest I ever came to getting it. But the missions with the aircraft forming and flying to the target, and you were shot at continuously from the coast all the way into wherever your target was, and some of them deep, what we call deep penetration, like Berlin and etc. And you were shot at all the way out, including aircraft fighters trying to kill you too. So it was a rather exciting experience. Some of these missions we did on various missions would be aircraft factories, ball bearing plants. One time we went and bombed a canal somewhere in Germany there because they were using the canal to ship stuff in and out of it, so we wanted to stop that. Some of the missions wasn't as hard as others. Some I remember in the missions were like we'd fly in across the channel, and we'd come out. When we came out, we'd come back out over the North Sea, which nobody liked that mission, because if you got hurt, shot up and lost the engine, or your aircraft's in trouble or something like that, you would have to ditch in the North Sea, and that was just probably like suicide, because you'd never survive. It's due to the fact it was cold, and the B-24 bomber just wasn't an airplane she ditched, because it would break two in the middle when you put it in water. And that is some of the experiences that I had. Some of them, I remember going on one mission, and what we had, you'd have maybe 40, 50 airplanes in a group, but you'd be in, your group stayed together, but the groups as a whole would be flying to the target. And it'd be the lead group will have a lead navigator. And everybody flew on that navigator. Of course, she had a backup navigator, which was in the second group. And on this particular mission, something happened with the lead navigator. We got into flak to start. If you were first over the target, you were better because you didn't get as much flak. But something happened on the lead navigator with him, and he had to abort. So what his group just turned out and came off, the second group just picked up and went on into the target. And of course, when we got ready, we had to circle all the way around to get back into formation on somebody, because we were in the tail end of it. And so we went over the target last, and we were getting shot off pieces of aircraft fire. And of course, everybody wanted to kill the navigator, the lead one, because he screwed up. But that's just some of the things that happened. Some of the times we lost engines. Coming back, we get shot up bad, and the engine would be out, or two engines would be out, and you'd be a sitting duck out there. Of course, that's just about what it boiled down to, because the enemy fighters, if the senior could find you, that they more or less could take you out. And at times we would call for help for our own fighters. If there was in the areas, they could come back and help us, or fly along with us to try to keep the enemy aircraft off of it. So those were some of the things. It was so good to be able to see the white cliffs of Dover, as most people have heard talk about flying, because when we could see that, we knew we were out of enemy territory. We'd be back home shortly. One of the things that happened sometimes with, GIs would get careless, and we were part of them, and what we had to do when we got back to the field, we had to take the guns out of our turrets and just give them to the ordnance people and then take care of them there. But some guys, like in the waste people or somebody like that, when it hit the English Channel coming back, then they'd figure, well, there's out of enemy territory and was no more problems, so they'd just take the gun out. Which, I mean, but they'd just take it out of the house and lay it down on the floor. And of course, the Germans picked up on that, and they would follow you out across the English Channel and jump you there, and some of the guys ended up without a gun. So, of course, that stopped that. But that is some of the things that happen. Sometimes the British would go to British bases, air bases, because we'd have to abort due to weather or something, where our own base, and we have to go somewhere else to land. And I remember going to a British air base, and the British treated their flyers, we thought, like kings. They got maid service, as you per se, from the soldiers, not soldiers, but the women. Forgot what they call them now, but and they got fresh eggs for breakfast and all that kind of good stuff. So we liked to go there, and of course, sometimes in turn, sometimes we'd come to our base, but we didn't have that type of service. We had to do our own laundry, etc., etc., and didn't get fresh eggs every day. One of the things on the eating thing I did, all combat crews, when they flew, they had to get up in the mornings about 4 o'clock and go eat and brief and all that kind of stuff to get airborne. The rest of the guys that wasn't flying that day, they could get up and go eat about 7, 8 o'clock. But the guys in flying would get fresh eggs maybe. So a little privilege over what the guys staying on the ground is. So I flew every day. I'd get up and go eat, come back and go to bed if I was flying. So I get them eggs and whatever, pancakes and what have you. That's just some of the instances. Another instance thing happened on base, we stayed in what we call mission huts. And we had a little pot-bedded stoves, all the heat we had in this thing, and they give you one wheelbarrow full of coke a week to heat that thing. Well, you know, a bunch of GIs, they'll stay warm, so it burned up about 2 days. So we found out the mess hall had coal that they used to cook with, but they had a fence around it. Anyway, we get up 3 or 4 and we go on a coal mission. We go to that big coal pile where they had a fence around it and take a bunch of GI bags with us and throw somebody over the fence to get over and throw the coal out, and we load it up and bring it back to the barracks in this GI bags. And many a time we've had inspection in the barracks, like they come and wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, want to do inspection or something. And we'd have them coke bags sitting away with this coke in it. They'd never look in it. And of course, we kept our coke box about empty most of the time, so they wouldn't know we steal it. But that's some of the ways things happen. Everybody had a bicycle, looks like, and one time the word got out that we got shot down, but we didn't. We just aborted and went to another field, and when we got back to the base, my bicycle was gone. Somebody done confiscated it. But this was kind of the life of being an airman. We in Europe had it better than a lot of them in other parts of the country. Hitler didn't have it good, and of course the Pacific didn't have it that great. And anyway, I did 35 combat missions without getting hurt, and I did them complete in sequence. And the last mission that I flew and was finished, my crew flew another mission, which all of us didn't finish at the same time for various reasons. And the last mission that they flew first mission they flew after I finished, the aircraft went down. And for what reason, I don't know. I understand later on that some of them got out and got back. So I was very fortunate. Didn't get hurt, got back home, and so I decided they wanted to continue to teach when I got back home. But I had thought about this thing, everything, and I thought, well, and I saw a lot of people get killed in training when I was doing the training bit, because mid-air collision, etc., etc. And I decided, well, I'd been this fortunate to get through the thing, so I decided I'd stay on the ground. I asked for assignment on the ground, and I stayed till I came back in '45, and I was in the States for about maybe 2-3 months, and then I got on shipment to go to the Pacific. And I was on my way to California when the war ended with Japan, so I didn't make that. That's about the size of my time in the Air Force.